Hello, welcome to the TA Grading's instruction video. I'll be taking you through the process for a TA to begin grading the student submissions. To begin this video, I just want to give some ground rules. Number one, for the TAs who have already completed their grading and have some errors that they would want to be changed, I will be talking about it at the end of this video, after I show for the TAs who have not begun grading and are actually going to start grading. So as you can see, I am on the Project Zone website home, and I'm going to go into the 619 Cloud Computing project. And on your left hand side top, you can see Schedule and Gradebook. So Gradebook is a tab that is going to be coming up over here for the TAs. If you select on it, you have these particular tabs open. Now, some of the TAs will not be able to view rubric and conflict of interest since it is a super TA feature, but the important tab for you would be the perform grading tab. Another point and note, it's extremely important to identify that this number that you see on top has no correlation to the number of grading assignments you will receive. There is an issue with the number that is generated here. The actual issue is that there are 2 assignees per submission, and therefore it is counting in many TA cases 2 times. So you will see 2 entries. That is the reason why the number is off. So please don't pay any attention to this number, and we will fix it in the next release. So now I will be going into the perform grading tab, and as you can see, I have the selection of selecting between a project, a phase, and a task. So I will be selecting project 1. Please make sure that you select project 1 listed as the second project. There seems to be an overlap by which it writes the project 2 : primers. So in this case, it is project 4 : project 1. And you can see the phase. The numbering of the phase is also off, so it is showing phase 9 sequential programming, where it is basically sequential programming that the TA has to begin grading for. So after I do the submit, it takes a little while for basically retrieving the grading assignments which you have been given. But as it is able to populate it, you will see this page which shows up. Now, the main 2 sections of this page are the pending table and the completed table. As you can see that I have not completed any of my grading assignments, so initially this table will be empty, and as I begin grading, it will start getting populated with the data. To quickly go over the different tabs that we have, we begin with the Andrew ID of the submitter, the nickname, the submission ID, the time when it was done. The code URL is extremely important because when you click on it, it will basically ask you where do you want to save the star.gz file. And since I have already saved it, I'm not going to save it again, but you can save it on your system and then look at the code manually. After that, we have the column for the rubric. Now, it is extremely important that you stick to the rubric and the penalties which have been applied in the rubric. If I click on it, I get a list of many options that have been vetted by the professor for what are the rubrics which apply for project 1.1. Now, there have been a lot of questions and queries regarding how the grading should be done and why has this grading mechanism changed. So I will be giving you 3 scenarios about which grading criteria applies where. So the first grading criteria is when a student submits a submission but does not give any code. So basically he got all the points regarding question 1 to question 9 but did not submit the code. In that case, since there is no code, there is no points for style. So in that case, the source code file was not found and he should be getting a -10 on the score he has received so far. Now this -10 is not the -10 from the 20 points he's supposed to get for code style. This is, for example, if the student completed question 1 to question 9 and got a score of 80, he should get a score of 70 as a penalty to say you did not submit your code. The second scenario, so if I select this, it should just show -10 over here, and the feedback section should say that the source code was not found at all. The next point is basically the scenario 2. In the scenario 2, I'm going to uncheck this particular scoring. Now in scenario 2, what happens is that if a student does submit the code and it is in perfect condition, he has given comments, he has followed the rubric to the T, in that case I will be giving him the code style points of 20, and if any rubric does not apply, I will leave this particular line as it is. I will not change this entry to say good coding practices followed, because he has followed the rubric to the T and his code is good with comments and every other criteria has been met. This is scenario number 2. Again, going and selecting the rubric and unselecting the code style. Now we're coming to the scenario 3, which will be the most common scenario. In scenario 3, there is a code submission, but there are some deductions which have to be done on that. So because there have been some errors done by the student. So in that case, since the code has been submitted, I will first give him the 20 points for code style. This is an extremely important step because the code exists. After the code exists, then I should start deducting points for individual items that do not comply with the code that has been submitted. For example, if he has filtered articles with constraint.jpg, once when I select it, it will deduct it from the manual score. And now, since I do not have a perfect score of 20 and good practices are followed, I will remove this comment from feedback and it will save it. Another feature about this UI is that if you make any changes on the feedback section and click somewhere else, it says saved, but this particular submission is not marked as graded until and unless you press submit. So you can change your values over here, but unless and until you press submit, it will not move into the completed section. So in this case, as you can see, if I select the rubric and I now see that as I'm going through the code that he has removed page with special characters also, I will check this. It will deduct the score from 20 further down and append the next scenario or the next rubric feedback. This is a mechanism that has been applied. To reiterate, what it is doing is that I am first selecting the code style of 20 because code exists. I am then applying the rubrics which apply. And if there are some hard-coded solutions, I can even select them. In this case, if I have multiple rubrics applied and the value goes lesser than 0, this is a very natural occurrence because we are not limiting the manual feedback score to 20 because there can be issues beyond the code as demonstrated in the hard coding, which should not be limited to the 20 points that have been designated for code style. So this has problems by default with the submission and not the style followed in the submission. So therefore there is a big difference between the two. I am unselecting these values just to reiterate, since this is a very common phenomenon. I will first start in scenario 3 to see the rubric, and if code exists, then I will select code style 20 to say yes, code exists. And if I have no other selection, you should follow good coding practices followed should be the comment that you send back as feedback. Now if I do find that there is something wrong, I will select that particular option and it will start deducting, and I will update this feedback because it is no longer perfect coding styles followed. Now taking the example of the student DJILLELA, so I'm going to open his submission. Now this is the submission that student has sent in his runner.sh file. Now as you can see that he has followed bash scripting for answering almost all of his questions. And looking at this particular submissions, I am getting the feeling of I'm not able to understand clearly what he is being able to do because there are no comments. There is nothing which identifies what is the methodology that he has followed and if or not all the case conditions have been met or not. So in that case, the first thing I will do is I will send it back to its original state. I will apply the code style points, but now I notice that there are no comments given in the code, making it difficult for me to grade this submission. So I will select no comments. As I had mentioned before, I will go and remove this entry because it is no longer a perfect entry, and then I will look at other conditions which apply. Now these conditions about filtering articles starting with EN, output format is incorrect, removing any pages that contain. As you can see, all of the rules have been followed, so there will not be any deductions as far as these are concerned. Now going back to this page, so I applied the code style first and then I gave him a -10 for no comments, and since he has not hard-coded on any other wrong attribute as far as the rubric is concerned, the manual score will be 10. So therefore you can see that the manual score can range between 20 and any negative value if you apply all of those above. So if there is no code, there is nothing to grade on, you will basically give him a -10 and he will get a -10 on the submission he's already made. If he has submitted some code and there is perfect, then it is code style 20, good coding practices followed. If he has submitted the code style and you find something wrong with it, you will select the ones which are appropriate. You will remove the perfect code style line above and you will submit this submission. Even if you see the keywords coming here saved, if you make any change to the feedback or the manual score, do not think that this submission has been graded, because unless and until you click on submit, it will not be graded. Now if I click on this particular submit, this submission is now complete. I have got no more changes to do in it and I am ready to move on to the next student. So when that happens, you can see that it moves to the completed section with the comments that I have given and the final score. Now the point for the TAs who have already completed the grading, please do not, I repeat, do not try to go and change the grades over here because they will not be reflected in the backend. Any change that has to be done after you have finished the grading needs to be red flagged and be reported to the super TA and the instructor. And in the current implementation, this feature does not exist. Therefore, if you do make any changes or if you do need to make any changes, I will show you the second way of changing. So on the particular Google Drive of the cloud computing class, in the zone folder under the folder called gradebook, you will find this Excel sheet, which is P1.1 grading sheet. Now this is the grading sheet which needs to have all the values that you give on the gradebook. I repeat, every single entry value that you have and are actually inputting into this system needs to be replicated over here. So for example, if I have given the manual score of 14 and the particular feedback, I need to actually copy paste those values over here. I'm going to be selecting Sohail, and as you can see, the submission ID 1232 2725 is the one that I have just graded, and 2725 exists here. I will physically copy these values and paste them over here as well. This we are doing as a form of double checking whether the gradebook is actually performing its job properly, and that any kind of entries that you did put over here are actually reflected in the database at the back. After you have graded all of your submissions, please double check your Excel sheet to make sure that these values have been filled out, because this will be like a fail-safe mechanism for us to make sure that any entry that you have put in has not been left out because there was some minor bug with the gradebook mechanism. After you complete this entire process and you have no more left in your pending, that will be the time when you have successfully finished the grading for P1.1. Now coming to the point about the TAs who have already completed the grading and actually want to change the manual score and the feedback. In this case, you will only be going to the project 1.1 grade sheet. You will actually copy paste these values from your completed section to the gradebook section in the gradebook XLS, and you will highlight by changing the color of this particular text to red to signify that you have made a change from the one that is existing in the database. When you highlight this change and you input the new manual score and feedback, then you would have successfully completed this particular grading assignment. Once again, the three scenarios: no code, it will be a -10. Perfect code will be a +20. If there is code and there are some changes, apply the code style 20 and then start applying the rubrics which are corresponding to the entry, and then submit it. Even if you see the keyword saved, unless and until you press submit, it will not be assigned as grading complete. So please make sure you click the submit button. If you have any further questions, please get in touch with me. My name is Vikram and my email ID is vikramn@andrew.cmu.edu. So you can send me a mail or you can just drop me a message on Hangout and I can come and look at what you have done. Thank you.